And yep, yep. Oh, right, yes, I'm doing my Churchill impression. Yeah, yeah. And to answer John Z in the chat, good, I need material. I need to also remember how to spell material. Hello and welcome to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, revolution.radio. This is Planet Collingwood. I'm Monty Dean, and I'm about to take a breath. Big thank you for turning in the guys for the Y-Files. I still have no idea why, if he calls the show that, but I do from afar, and I have the talking stick now. If you enjoyed the last 2 hours, please go to the website and donate what you can, because Revolution Radio is 100% listener supported and is full of volunteers, be it hosts, producers, chatters, and mods in the chat room. And to continue sharing this information and allowing me to run rampant at 2 o'clock in the morning, we need funds to keep going, because the Babylonian debt system is still in full force. However, we're seeing it collapse, and isn't it fun, boys and girls? If you want to join me, it is Monty_Dean on Skype. If you're already part of my contact list, just drop me a message and I'll add you to the call. At the moment, I've been joined by John Z and Bruce MacDonald, and now they're going to wrestle in mud over Chuppa Chup. No, right, sorry, wrong show.
It's okay, I can't spell material either, Monty.
Yeah, oh, good.
First you give me a massage, and then I'll give you a massage.
Well, see, now we did a bit of a pre-production meeting, me and Mr. Z, or as they say in Canada, Zed. Zed. And Australia as well. Yeah, and Australia as well. Yeah, actually, the rest of the planet says Zed. Take that, yeah, Yankee Doodle Dandy. Anyway, you did join. You were afraid of the dark, so you joined a military organization because they gave you a gun.
They made me operate in the dark, so it made sense, right?
Yes, but when you say massage, I'm not sure if that's code or a euphemism.
Oh, you know what it's from.
Oh, I know, do I?
Up.
Dig up, stupid. Now, Bruce, I have had the great success in my communications today. I'm doing Borat and Russian there for some strange reason. Your book actually arrived today.
I thought you got it already.
No, I bought it, but because it's physical, and strangely enough, the teleporter's down.
Yes.
I actually have it, so it's a bit thin for $40, but I haven't read it yet. So it looks good though.
What's the word count? What's the page count?
You have the finish of the book, and then there's about the authors. And you look extremely young in that photo, my friend. But that's what writers do. Yeah. 257 pages.
Yeah, that's worth every penny, Monty. Pure gold.
So I'll be starting that tomorrow and reading it in the next fortnight, and in the next couple of days, organise an interview with yourself and possibly John to actually talk about the book. And that's why I got the book, because it's like,
Why would you read the book and then interview someone? Why?
Because I'm different. Afraid of the dark army guy with a gun.
So I'm curious, because I've been keeping up with your podcasts, and they're showbiz centric so far. How are you going to segue into this?
Well, I actually have my friend Melissa, who uses quantum biogenic healing. So that's going up in the next 2 days. So there's an element, and then I think just before you, in my wonderful planning, Andrew Bartzis will be on just before you. So I think segue or a sharp turn to the left or right, because I don't want to be partisan.
Good. So we're in good company. That's really cool, and thank you for having us, Monty.
Oh no, well it's like it's just between you, me, and the alphabet agencies that listen to our show. I was going to call this show Hello ASIO, but I'm not sure if anyone knows what ASIO is, except for the two guys laughing in their little cubicle in Canberra. It's basically I'm just contacting all my friends, going, do you have any product to sell? Because I can put it on YouTube and you can help me out and I help you out. So, like when your next book comes out, you're definitely coming on my podcast.
Yeah, yeah. This one's a humdinger. It's going to take a little bit longer though. It's a bigger energy drain. John's there's a lot more psychological and spiritual investment in this. This next book jumps it up a couple notches. Now you might say, how could you do that on top of Stardust Ranch in terms of documenting the bizarre? I'll just give you a few hints. London, Oxford graduate, an initiate of no secret society but privy to them all, mid-50s, read Stardust Ranch, has had enough, has decided to tell what he knows. And it's quite a life. But this is more the satanic world. But, dear listener, and hopefully dear reader, there is a profound overlay between the extraterrestrial and the satanic world, and that's what this book is going to explain. In many ways, they're the same thing. You hear people talking, everybody has their own theological perspective depending on what book they read. Whether it be Hijacker with the Nephilim, and they're real. Or, whether it just be Why Not saying it's our ancestors or something that Owaspy says. It's all of those things and none of those things. Basically, what people need to understand is that we're dealing with the fourth dimension, and in the fourth dimension, things can transmute and I don't want to say shapeshift because that's a physical term. You don't shapeshift on the astral. But basically, you're gonna get, if you're open to this kind of stuff. I'm not. I believe in concentrating consciousness at a higher level, and not commiserating with these psychic manifestations. And that's my advice to everybody. But nobody really takes it. Rev Radio is a very psychic crowd. They use the word spiritual, but it's actually psychic phenomenon, and that's a huge distinction, and it's something that needs to be understood. So. This fourth dimension, when you think about it, I defy anyone on this roundtable to name a single culture that ever existed for more than 12 generations and did not have a mythology about interacting with non-human beings that were like us, meaning they were hominid, they had a language, they were more intelligent than animals. In the 21st century, it's extraterrestrials. In Celtic Ireland and Scotland, it was the fairies and the nature spirits. You see where I'm going with this, Monty?
Yeah. And also, if you choose to, because Bruce and I are not telling you what to do, but if this floats your boat, David Icke went through, and most cultures have a reptilian-esque type tale as well. Yeah. And I try to put it in joke form, but it's too long. However, when people say, aliens are a hoax, well, if you look at all the video footage, the photos, the military have made statements, the 30 or more ancient civilizations that refer to sky gods, and the technology that's found that's out of place, I think that's more of a hoax. If aliens don't exist, there's a massive hoax to pretend that there is.
Yeah. So, which brings me to, I think, what is the central thing to discuss on any roundtable tonight when you distill all this stuff we talk about. Again, no matter what perspective you come from, extraterrestrial, political, social, spiritual, religious, there's something going on in the world now where the face of something that's been existing with us for quite some time is being seen. The knee-jerk of the alternative community is we flushed out the fox. Everyone can see it now. So we're not crazy. They know we're not going into the chicken coop at night and stealing their chickens. There really is a fox. But the question is are we just seeing the fox for the first time, or is the fox announcing itself? You see, the more I see this world unfold, this seems like the sort of controlled disclosure that Arizona Wilder was talking about in the 90s with that interview with David Icke, where she said early in the 21st century, they're going to look to announce themselves, the Illuminati. And let's just stay with that name, whether it suits or not, okay? There's something above them as well, but, And they're going to say, look, we run the world. We've always been here. And it'll be at a time when the world is in crisis and so on and so forth. Well, we're certainly seeing a lot of their culture. I mean, the human trafficking, child trafficking, rape, and ritual sacrifice culture is available for anyone who wants to know whether it exists or not. The only thing holding people back is not wanting to open that closet and look inside. But it's all been laid out now. There's no denying it, right? That culture exists. I mean, especially after Ronald Bernard, the Dutch banker whistleblower. And there's so much of it now, and none of these. There's no way. Ask yourself a question: is this all part of an elaborate intelligence operation that began 25, 30 years ago, where they sort of suckered someone like David Icke into finding this information and distributing it, and all of these other ancillary players are somehow involved in it as well? If you reach a point where something seems ridiculous, it probably is. So, yeah. Is it disclosure, or are we ferreting them out like the fox in the forest?
Well, see, I would say it's both. The medical thing that's happening on the planet that we'll try not to mention as far as possible. I'm sure we'll mention it later, but that I think has elevated their plans. Because to me, everyone I've spoken to, something's off with what's going on, and I think people say it was released on purpose and it's the end of times and their plans are all falling into place. I think, to me, I'm leaning towards it was accidentally released, and their plans have been moved up, and they're playing catch up as well, because this planet has this strange forced evolution about it, because the Schumann resonance is, to coin a phrase, going off like a frog on a sock in a fry pan. And especially over the last weekend, and you got the supermoon, which with its lovely little cape, so whatever's happened has forced their hand. Is that a better way of answering your question of disclosure or the hand? Yeah, because for me, thinking in story, if they have to come out behind the curtain and reveal themselves, that has to be a massive jump, where it's like they're using this opportunity of lockdown and trying to control the contagion.
Something to point out here, and granted they're two vastly different things, but over here, the New York Mafia, when John Gotti became the superstar of media and embraced it, it didn't really end well for the mob for a number of reasons. And like I said, it's a completely different situation, but I really don't know how people are going to react when they come out and say it, because this virus is the first bullet in an opening salvo. There's going to be many more to come, and just like the mob, if you don't fear them or you're not making money with them, there's no incentive or there's no fear-based control, then why are you going to listen to them? So, the only thing I can really see is if they come out and announce themselves, they're going to be holding a biological weapon of real proportions, not this flimsy flu crap, over our heads.
Yeah. But the interesting thing is, they're so small and there's so many of us, and why would they want to kill the herd? Because they make money or energy off humanity. Well, and there's so many other entities / invested interests across the planet, and multidimensionally as well, where if someone steps out of line, they can force some things other hand. However, please continue with your thought, because welcome to Planet Collingwood, where we explore most things. Like I do like
Crap, I forgot what I was.
I do like what you I do like the mob analogy. And if you don't pay them attention,
Yeah.
they'll probably, because most of these people are emotionally free.
Oh,
We've
that's
seen
what I
how.
was gonna say.
There you go.
Uh, so, you know, the money thing. It's a way to keep us in line, and in reality, money is what we decide it is, and by we I mean, um, obviously, you know, there's all these rules and government bodies that are supposed to be sanctioned and all this stuff, but what is money at the end of the day? It's what we decide it is, and to be perfectly honest, or at least in my opinion anyway, money, it doesn't really mean anything. Um, it's really only a way to hold it's another form of control. It's another shackle.
Yeah.
And so if you take money out of the equation for a second, because yeah, let's be real, these people have actual wealth, in terms of not just silver and gold, but what I would consider wealth as in, um, material things that people want, such as money or, you know, precious goods, whatever you want to call them. But they also have power. That's where wealth comes from, in my mind anyway.
And interesting enough, the use of money is connected to that power because they can pay off people, and that's sort of what we've been seeing over the last 10 years. Is their revenue streams are being cut, and they're slowly losing all their minions because they can't pay for them. If I may just very quickly, money itself is like a talisman. It's a form of energy, and it wants to help people. Now, for the last 5,000 years, it's been weaponized because it's like barter or a good friendship. Like, say, John, if you're going to move from uptown to downtown and you needed my van to move all your furniture, all right. And then 2 weeks later, you buy me tickets to the Public Enemy show at Madison Square Gardens or whatever. So that's an exchange of energy, if I can put it that way. And what money is to make it easier, because what is the exchange rate of chicken and cow? Like 6 chickens to 1 cow. Bruce, you're from Puerto Rico. How's it going down there? You've got the barter system, but it's just easier where you've got currency where you don't carry a chicken into a petrol station. It's like, I'll have 3 liters, thanks. So you have that you have that talisman. Which is just a note or a coin. Now, the thing is, even going back to tally sticks as well, going before they went to all this coin stuff, some psychopaths have figured out that they can control the issuance of currency, and you get fractal lending, and they've weaponized it, and that's why it's controlled, because instead of like the wealth of a nation is its people and its resources on the land, you now have a government that borrows from a private bank and has to pay back interest, which is money made out of thin air.
Yeah. Well, the 1 or 2 holes I see in John Z's mob analogy is that really, if you're outside the mob, you're outside the mob. With what we're dealing with now, and the mob knows that, they refer to you as a civilian. And they don't like to harm civilians because it puts more pressure on the cops, and the guys that are getting kickback and everything get squeezed by their bosses. No, an economy is like a canoe. Never stand up in a canoe. So just stay calm, paddle gently, keep the canoe upright. And in the situation we're in now, we're all in this mob. It's from the birth certificate onwards. And you can say that, well, we really don't owe anything, I can leave at any time. I don't think so. I think what we're learning now, that this system is a sort of equivalent of the Iron Curtain in the old Soviet Union. We've invested in you, you're a part of this society, you owe us for life. And you can't really say, I don't want any part of it. I know people who have. A lot of people talk about being a sovereign citizen. Very few people walk it. I know a guy who did, 15 years ago. He's a Canadian guy. Sent a notarized letter to the Attorney General at a federal level and formally turned in all his ID. his birth certificate, his passport, everything that he had, and said, "I'm ending this contract." And they leave him. It was quite fascinating to follow his life. He's a friend on Facebook, and they've left him alone for a long time. And he's been pulled over by cops, and they give him the ticket, but he never shows up and he never pays it because he doesn't exist on paper. They actually have to falsify the ticket to even give it to him. But now, in the last year or so, the cops are all over him, and he has to move from province to province and stuff like that. And they're just literally stealing from him.
Well,
So he lives out of a camper truck, and he's got a whole bunch of tools in it. He's a carpenter, and the cops know what he does. They know he lives off of his labor and everything. And when they find him now, they take everything, and he has to start over. He has to buy tools. He has to buy a new vehicle. He has to buy everything.
oh,
Right?
jeez.
And they have legally they can't do that. But so they're breaking their own contract now. Sorry, talk too much. Go ahead.
Your canoe analogy, I think you're correct, but again, what we're seeing right now is kind of like the, for lack of better analogies or terms here, the wizard is being revealed behind the curtain, and everybody at one point is going to stand up in this canoe, and we're being forced to tip over the canoe, meaning if you look at what's going on, especially with the stock market, that stuff is manipulated, and there's probably a whole bunch of reasons why it goes up and down. You can listen to those people who say they know what's going on, but I think that's bullcrap. This canoe is going to tip, and so again, I don't see how it's going to work once they say, hey, I guess what I'm saying is that the money thing, the debt, I don't see that being a real big part. The only thing I see it being the actual problem is them holding something over our heads that's going to kill us. Because if we think about it, everyone kind of sees what's coming, right? Like the foundation is starting to crack, it's starting to crumble, it's starting to erode from beneath everything on a base level. And if you have no base to stand on, everything else crumbles. And so when the economy goes bust eventually, I can't see how it's going to go on forever. I can't see that. So when that happens, everyone's going to stand up in the canoe as it tips over, and they're going to get pissed off. And the only way I see them keeping us in check is we're going to kill you. But even that doesn't really hold true, because I think their goal is to kill us.
Yeah. This is what I find, amusing about what I call the platitude people. The people who just give oratory cliches all the time. Like, just like when you drill down on any of them, there's no substance. I mean, it's all detail now. The time for generalities is over. And here's another thing, okay? People aren't going to like to hear this because it runs counter to the sentimental notion of what compassion is. This situation is going to get like when a sniper takes out one of your buddies and leaves him screaming 20 meters away from the rest of the platoon to try and draw other people out to save him. So for more people to shoot. Right? So what I'm saying here is, if you're still thinking about changing the collective, like we can take over this system, you're insane. You're not even looking at reality properly. The only way out of this is to take care of yourself at this point. And when they're done, whatever program they're doing, if you're still alive, find your place in the new world. But we are not going, whatever victory is going to come about, the system is being destroyed. Now, if I'm wrong, if I'm wrong, the only other alternative is that they are prepared for all of this. But what they may be trying to do, the left, is force Trump to do something that is completely draconian, like martial law and food banks at local school gymnasiums and stuff like that. But even that gets complicated when you have stuff like a virus, right? So, but there is no way for the system to collapse. I mean, 2008, if they didn't reseed the system in 2008, I mean, Hank Paulson was not lying, the head of the Treasury back then. He said, look, if you don't do this, there's going to be rioting on the street. All liquidity will freeze up. People don't seem to understand what that means. You know, when Viking comes on and he gives extremely articulate detail on what happened in the market on a particular day, what the yield on bonds are, I'm not sure many people really understand what he's talking about, but what he's saying in a nutshell is that even the market doesn't see any value in dollars anymore. They can't sell bonds. They can't sell 2-year bonds. They are selling bonds now because the stocks are moving from the bonds, okay? Now, when you see stocks moving into bonds, what it means is that people have no faith in the market. They don't believe any private sector companies are going to yield dividends, and the only safe place to park your money is with the government, because if they go belly up, everything's lost, right? So if everything's going to be lost anyways, well, then there's no way you could have saved yourself or saved your money. And so the bond market is the market of last resort. But even so, I mean, even the money that's going into the bond market, there's no yield on it. It's like a half a percentage point, 1 percentage point over 5 years. Does that sound like something that Goldman Sachs would want their money in? Goldman Sachs is habitually looking for 7 to 12% on everything. You know, that's what you would call medium risk investment. Safe investment is 4%. If you want to just leave your money parked in a bank, you're going to get like a half a percentage point now. When's the last time you ever saw an interest dividend on a savings account at a bank? Either one of you guys in this conversation.
I think it's bank I'm at. I think it's 0.35 or something like that.
Yeah, I saw them in the early 80s when I was born in 66. I had my first bank account when I was about 15, and I would see when I would give them my bank book to update, because there were no machines back then, they would give it back to me. Yeah, and they would have the interest there. You earned $1.07 in interest in the last 6 months or something. When's the last time you saw anything like that on one of your digital bank statements online? There's no. So if people are just putting, when you go into the bond market the way that investors are, and I mean institutional investors here, I mean people with billions of dollars, when they circle and go into the bond market, they're going into a defensive position. They're not looking to make money. They're looking to just to preserve what they have. So the question becomes, what happens when there's a collapse? Do we go to martial law? How long does the martial law last? How long before they can get the economy up and running again? Is there going to be any kind of representative redistribution of a new currency? And representative would mean what you had before the system crashed. Are those records going to be transferred to the new system? So if you're 55 years old and you've saved $5 million, are you going to get some equivalent of that in the new system? I'll give my answer first. No. It's like you're going to have to start from scratch. So I think the people that are really getting screwed here are the people who have played by the rules their whole lives and worked hard and saved money. Mm-hmm. And this is a horrible thing to say out loud, but I'm going to say it anyways. I'm glad it's happening, even though it's going to happen to my parents and my brother, because that's their wake-up call. And we need that. If we're gonna win anything and get into any kind of decent society, we need as many people as possible to realize that what we've been saying for the last decade is true. And a lot of these people who've been successful in the system, they're not going to get it until the system takes it away from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and will it go down that path? Because for me, anyway, it could be the optimism. It can be righted quickly. I'm not saying that we can save the system. The system's designed a certain way, and it's going to collapse because it doesn't work. And the thing is, if there's a jubilee, like if I go the positive side of the fence, if there's a jubilee and all debt and all savings is wiped, that's going to be very interesting for humanity to take on board. However, imagine 12 months later, because there will be no government debt, the things will drop 30%. You know what I mean? Everything. The idea of money will just change completely. Go ahead.
Well, I think everything you just said is true. But here's something we're actually missing here. So even if we do all that, we go through this, whether it's Jubilee, whether it's a crash, whether we're starting from zero, whether we're starting with debt or not, starting over, whatever. And I will repeat this, if we do not, how do I say this without offending everyone? If we do not prevent these people that are in power, if we do not prevent them from being the quote-unquote leaders or orchestrators or magicians, whatever you want to call them, if we do not stop them and allow them to take those positions again, guess what? The whole cycle starts over.
Yeah. Now that's the interesting thing of how, like, a lot of people will probably want to draw and quarter and kill them and everything else like that, and sort of become them. And I think it will get to like the Nuremberg trials at the end of World War II, but much greater, because there has to be a correction or for justice, or I'm trying to think of the word where the crime should be answered. Someone has to pay for the crime type thing. I'm against the death penalty, but that's just me. And I still think there's a plastic island in the middle of the North Pacific. We can rope that all together and put them on there and film it, and we're karmically fine. Because Lord of the Flies, but Hillary Clinton is beating up Bill because I was only looking at the coconuts. I know you were very whack. Yeah. And so there has to be retribution, or you're good at words, Bruce. What's the word I'm looking for? Because it's there has to
recompense is the word you're looking for. Recompense. There has to be a balancing of the scales.
Yes. Yes.
There's a contingent of people in the alternative movement on YouTube channels and such, and when you listen to them, you get the sense that they believe there's going to be some critical mass of understanding in the public, and when the public really knows what's going on, these people are going to have their Ebenezer Scrooge moment. You remember how Ebenezer Scrooge, his heart is turned in that Dickens tale after the ghost of past, present, and future? Okay, well, I mean, these people aren't gripped by something that's blinding them, like greed or power or anything like that. They have consciously chosen to be what they are. They are irredeemable. This is why I find it comical that people talk about, we're going to take the system back from them. They created this system. It's theirs. What you have to do is you have to go and create new systems. And the only way you can do that is in the micro. You start with micro communities and you build from there. And you're not going to be living in New York or Toronto or Los Angeles or Tokyo or Berlin and change the system there and make it a good and loving city with 5G. The entire system, the entire physical infrastructure has, you know how there's a feng shui to things? Cities exist in a lot of ways to rob your energy. There's energy thievery all around you. And that was stage one, right? You're constantly bleeding energy because you're overstimulated. You want to get laid all the time. You eat improperly because you're constantly tempted. Wow, those sausages smell good on the street meat vendor's cart. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And in its final phase, the city is a concentration camp, and that's what they're gearing up for now. Because they can be controlled very, very easily.
Strangely enough,
Very easily.
in the United States especially, because the idea is to protect the cities. However, you can flip that where you can contain the cities. Someone who cannot be contained because he's got a big boat, and a sail. Please welcome the Viking.
Hey guys, yeah, I've been listening to your show the entire hour here, so I'm up to speed.
Oh, good. It's yeah, the system works, but for who? Which I find fascinating because we're told a fantasy by the media, and then the system doesn't work at all. Where I see people like, say, Stephen Crowder, he rather have the American style health system, because if you've got money, you can pay for it and you can get healthy. If you want socialized medicine, like in Canada, you have to wait 2 years for certain things and people die and everything else like that. And so I can see where he's coming from. I don't agree with him 100%. You could sort of have a bit of both, where you can have a nationalized health system. Like here in Australia, we have it, but it's under siege. Now because we are living healthy, where there's poison in the food, there's poison in the water, there's poison in the air. They won't allow marijuana to be legalized, but they still allow cigarettes. And they use the idea that because like they keep putting up the taxes on cigarettes because they believe that people are allowed to have a choice of what they put into their body. So what about cannabis? Oh, no, you can't have that. What? Sorry, what?
That's changing. That's changing.
Yeah, slowly.
It's changed here in New York.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the United States is different, though. Just doing it from an Australian point of view. The United States is completely different, where, like, Colorado, where I finally watched the last couple of episodes of South Park, where it was great. Randy actually got cocaine legalized. And he just basically did everything that he did for cannabis type thing. So, yeah, it was quite good. And then Santa got upset because everyone was still, instead of getting drunk, they're getting high on coke and smashing into everything. So, satire, ladies and gentlemen, satire. I have no idea what I was talking about. I've wandered off into a field of consciousness. Oh, look, a clown. So there you are. Please continue, because I've come to the end of my stream of consciousness, and there's a tree.
I would like to hear a financial update from Viking.
Money.
I know he stayed on top of that information.
Actually,
money.
Yeah, because here in Australia, they've lost up to $150 billion in one day. And so I know Viking is much better at looking at these things, because he knows what I just look at it and go, ooh. So Viking, what can you report on with all the stock markets taking a dip?
Well, let me first comment on a little bit of what you guys have been talking about here. And the big difference here is the have-yots and have-nots. You know, we've been split into two camps. And it's all based on debt. There's no liquidity. There's absolutely, it's about subjugation and slavery. And this has been a stratagem to control us as humanity on this planet for thousands of years. I mean, it's been the same rhetoric, just respun to different timelines and time zones and cultures. We have been just kept in this absolute dystopia for a reason, and this higher echelon that you refer to them as the Illuminati or the Cabal or the deep state of the reptilians. It's actually a reptilian force behind it. Can no longer function in the way that they used to, because, as you were pointing out, John, is that they're being exposed. They're no longer behind the curtain. They had their best strategy, not keeping people in this Sleeping Beauty syndrome of not knowing what the hell is going on, and keeping them in this rhetoric of survival in their needs and wants of addiction. We're an addicted culture. We're all addicted to something in our in our cocktail of PTSD, which basically keeps us with a heartbeat. So it has come to a point of exposure, and this is the most important thing. I think you were touching on this, Bruce, is that it's come to a point of just it can no longer sustain itself, and so they're actually starting to fight amongst themselves here. The camps are starting to find a division in this debt-ridden society. And so in order for this to turn around, we have to have liquidity. We have to have actually what's known as commerce. We have to have what's known as a legal tender that actually has a value, not kept pinned together with what's called our confidence. But our confidence is being shattered, and the markets are showing this. I mean, there's no longer, you can no longer sustain the level of just absolute crookery and devious nature to keep us enslaved for as long as they have. Each time the market crashes, they get bailed out. The same old system is just revived and kept alive. Well, this is basically coming to a final act. These markets that are crashing, they're not crashing because of the coronavirus. As I mentioned on the last show, the coronavirus is a piñata. It's the shape of a piñata. That's a scapegoat. And everybody's banging on it saying this is the reason. Well, it's not the reason. It might be a catalyst, but it's about to come down anyway. And basically the major sectors being hit here is oil, which basically runs the world. It's the petrodollar. It's what we call the fair weather bell of how we can negotiate and bring a means and a terms to an agreement around debt. And then, of course, there's the global stock market and the bond market. But it's basically it's just showing that there's many cracks or leaks in the dike, and that there's not enough people to put their finger in these holes to keep it alive. I wish I had a friggin' $150 billion a day to play in the stock market. It's called the plunge protection team. Comes in every day with $150 billion, and they're putting it in commodities, they're putting it in oil, they're putting it in the stock market, the bond market, to keep this thing alive. And it cannot be sustained. It cannot be sustained. This is not sustainable.
To quote Robin Williams, it's like throwing bricks into the Grand Canyon. Like, what are you doing? Mind you, I think I'm with Viking. If I had $150 billion, everyone would get a Twinkie. That's the first thing. Everyone, it's Twinkie Tuesday, everyone. And I'm still probably have $149.5 billion. So it's Benjamin Fulford has put forward that I think it's $4 billion can clean up the planet in 12 months. And if things were allowed, which I think that's what we're railing against, is the ideas or this force or whatever it is. This planet can be completely different in 12 months if we're allowed to do things. Change from oil to hemp and commodities and resource-based thing and currency and all this type of stuff. And I'm sure we've talked about it a lot. However, we're sort of seeing now. Here's a question for the table: as the system is collapsing, because these idiots love to, order out a chaos deal. What if they can't control the chaos and they're freaking out? Because I don't see. I mean, you've got the basic thing, martial law, everything else like that, but it's going to be very rocky. I don't see them winning or putting in a new system, because there's too many of us that have figured it out, and there's a lot of people, dare I say, sleeper agents like us, where they know this information, but they're a little bit afraid to do anything. And I think there'll be a triggering point where a lot of people will stand up and go, no. Don't know what that is, though. So I'm just wondering how can we get from here to their plans? Because it's quite easy to get from here to heaven. in not actual heaven where you die, but like if there's a solar flash and everyone's veil drops, something fantastical like that. But I don't. I'm putting total control of Team Dark on the same level of imaginary stupidity type thing. I don't see how they can do it because there's too much resistance.
Well, they can kill a bunch of people is what they can do.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
they do have the element of fear. Yep, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, you're going to have to stay strong, right? There's going to be and one of the things that's going to fool a lot of people is you're going to see a lot of elites die. So they're coming. Remember, metaphorically speaking, the devil has no friends, only contracts. So you can be an acquaintance and an associate of these negative cartels for, multiple generations, but when your usefulness, when it comes time to die for the cause, they expect you to do it as unflinchingly as the other side would die for God, a martyr. So they have a bit of that consciousness there as well. So you're going to see elites go down too. Like the Pope might have the coronavirus, right? So he might be going out. So I mean, this is a massive thing going on now in the world. Everything is changing. What's behind it, I don't know. Maybe the Jews are right, and the Mashiach is really coming.
Well, they definitely are in the form of our galactic friends. They are coming, and it's purported that they'll be here in the next 12 months. But as is being alluded to here, there has to be a disclosure. In order for humanity as a whole to move forward, there has to be disclosure and prosperity. And these are the two things that are being absolutely brought to the forefront of our existence.
Now, with the virus in play, though, have you noticed there's no protesting? And so doesn't really matter how it started, but it's being used because the Hong Kong protesters have shut down. I believe the French ones have shut down as well. And I can see a timeline that I think Mr. Zed mentioned, and same with hijackers. Like they've tried this form of virus, and they may try something else just to distract humanity because it's a whole you want to live thing. On the flip side of that as well, because of the Earth changes, we could be having viruses that have been dormant for thousands of years, and as the permafrost goes, something comes out as well. So I get this is where I'm coming from, whereas Team Dark don't have total control of what's going on, and so they may be in the dark, well, not knowing because they are in the dark. You know what I'm saying? Of what is actually. So they may be sort of having roundtables like this of like, well, what's happening? Because they've got a goal, but they have no idea how to get there.
Well, yeah. I think a lot of their strategy was myopic. I mean, they could have released this thing, but had no idea that it was going to backfire. They're really, they've had so much confidence in their rule that I think it's basically gone to their head, and they thought that they could pull off this false flag like the other 7 viruses that they pulled off in the past 20 years. But I believe they had no idea that was going to start to cripple their infrastructure.
Oh, I think they knew. I think absolutely they knew. That would be an elementary mistake. That's totally wishful thinking. Thinking they didn't know what was coming here, man. I can't go along with that at all.
But do you think that they expected the entire country of China to shut down because it was released in their major manufacturing province? I don't think they have the. I do give them a lot of credit. I still think that they did not understand the scope of this.
Listen.
Well,
listen carefully.
Very quick question, and then John follow up. How could they predict what's happening in Italy? John, go ahead.
Don't get fooled about whether this is accidental. This was a planned event. Okay, this is a manufactured flu virus, whatever you want to call it. It's done on purpose. Bruce is correct. I mean, just look at it from their position. You're on top of the perch, okay? You can see the entire world. you have time. You have a timeline, right? So you have time for preparation. You have time to discuss what's going to happen. You have numbers and figures being run. There's certain things that you can come to a very easy conclusion about what will happen. Maybe not exactly down to uh, the micro details, but in general, you can get an idea. And for anyone saying that, they're not as smart as you think, or, a lot of this is accidental. Yeah, you can't predict life. Yeah, so sure, some things are accidental, but let's be real here. You have a bunch of people that have influence, power, and money to bribe, buy anything you want, anyone you need. It, it's kind of, excuse my French here, but it's really freaking stupid to think otherwise.
Well, if I may, you are correct. However, I've seen a pushback because up until the virus became this level, you had 2/3 of the countries on the planet there was protesting of it. Is Brexit part of this plan? Is Trump part of this plan? The economic system as well, where they know what's going to happen, and I'm sure they have plans. But I'm seeing they don't have total control exactly because there's a lot of pushback and people like ourselves and all that type of stuff. So I'm just giving a bit of balance. So I'm not saying you're wrong. It's on the other side of the coin. It's interesting to see where it's almost matched, if I can put it that way.
Well, I see this whole thing being an attack against humanity. Basically to try to push us back. It's like the cows broke out of the corral, and they're trying to get us back in through fear, through subjugation, through poverty. There's nothing new here. There's nothing new here. It's just done with a different stroke of the pen.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that Viking has. And that's the rallying point for everybody to find commonality, right? Especially in this alternative community, there's all these fights for narrative dominance, whether it's the biblical narrative or the ET narrative. Here's the one takeaway: no matter what you decide, because that's all theoretical and philosophical, and it's going to be influenced by your belief systems. There's something coexisting with humanity that hates us, and let's call it an interspecies hatred. They hate us the way we hate vermin, like cockroaches or mice in the kitchen, okay? They hate us. There's no negotiating with them. They hate humanity. And they have human familiars working with them. And, so that's my 2 cents worth, if you want to find any commonality in this.
No, that's perfect because we should be coming up on the break. So about 60 seconds. So I'll slowly go through my housekeeping. You're listening to Revolution Radio. This is Planet Collingwood. My name's Monty Dean. I have been joined by John Z, Bruce MacDonald, and the Viking. We'll be back for another hour, and we'll be picking out what prom dress I'll be wearing on Tuesday. And if you enjoyed the last hour, please go to the website, revolution.radio and or freedomslips.com and donate what you can. 100% listener supported. There's also merchandise, and also there's the chat room, and Jer Bear's in there. So if you want to go talk to Jer Bear, he's awesome. So there you go. And if there's any...
Cool, yay!
Yeah, but from the high board, it was disgusting. We'll be right back soon. Me speaky baddie, which is kind of crap because I'm on radio. We shall return. And yep, getting used to it still. Because, stuff, things, reasons. You are listening to Revolution Radio. Welcome back. This is Planet Collingwood, and my name is Monty Dean. I've been joined by the Viking as well as John Z. I believe Bruce has just popped out into the green room because, people have lives, let's be fair. And he lives on a farm, so it could be anything really. So maybe his elephants are pregnant. I'm not sure. If you like the last hour, donate if you want. While you're at the website, buy some merchandise and then pop in to the chat room. Stardust Man popped in, so hello, Daryl. Just also news to hand, Joe Biden will slap you if you disagree with him. So I think he's got an interesting campaign going on where he's threatening voters. However, it may work in this crazy times. It's go ahead.
Speaking of which, who in their right mind would? I mean, again, are these elections not being rigged? Who in their right mind would vote for this guy? I mean, he's senile and he's absolutely just losing it big time. And who would vote for him? I mean, I look at him picking up all these primaries. I'm thinking to myself, is this not being rigged?
Yeah, because it looks like they don't want Bernie. Because I've actually seen people say anyone but Bernie, and so they'll sacrifice the nomination so Trump wins, so you don't get Bernie in. But Bernie could be easily beaten because he's got an interesting take on things, where like Trump needs to, if he goes up against Bernie, Trump needs to just put together better policies than Bernie, where he can actually approach everybody, where it's good for business without sacrificing the American people type thing. I don't know if that will happen, but yeah.
Well, there's a scuttlebutt on the internet in the Patriots section where they feel that Biden will make it to the convention and pull it and then have a heart attack, and they're still thinking that who will take his place will be an Obama Clinton ticket. Michael Obama and Hillary Clinton will come in somehow. This is speculation, but this is what they're seeing as their strategy.
Yes, yeah. Even if Hillary Clinton can become the VP, and then even James Woods, he's back on Twitter. If you're a Twitter user, everyone, James Woods has returned. Life is getting better. And he pointed out, I mean, we should take bets of how long, if Joe Biden becomes the president and Hillary Clinton is the vice president, take bets on how long till Hillary's president, because I'm sure Joe will have an accident or he'll fall down some stairs twice, nail gun to the back of the head 8 times, or just harmless accidents around the house. But that I can sort of see that as well. I mean, Bernie, apart from he's a little bit crazy, he's already had a heart attack, and it's interesting where you've got the far left where we want diversity and representation, and so our choices are 70-year-old white men who are straight. It's kind of fascinating. But not sure how. We just have to wait and see. Does anyone know? Like, will Trump run uncontested? Like, would the party, will the Republican Party do any primary like for the nomination, or they'll just let Trump go because from a party's point of view, he's the best candidate to go forward?
He's uncontested.
Yeah. Because also it's just his second term, so they can anyone in the Republican Party could just show their worth in the next 4 years and then run, and by helping Trump they get endorsed by Trump. Interesting enough, I just remembered Gabbard is not allowed to, like, she qualified for the latest debate, but they're changing the rules again. The Democratic Party of today is either going to fracture or just disappear because it sounds like they're in high school. It's been run by high school students, where it's like, well, we don't like him. Oh my God, we can't have him in. So let's just change the rules so Becky can win, okay? Sure. And
she should run on independent ticket. That would hamstring the entire Democratic Party if she ran an independent ticket.
Yes, I think that's the interesting take with the two-party system. Unless, like here in Australia and I think Canada as well, Bruce has returned from the green room. He's got walnuts. Awesome.
Sorry, I had to get a little smack into my veins there. I was losing inspiration.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Like here in Australia, we've got two. There's a coalition, which is the Liberals, who are conservative. Figure that one out. The Nationals, which is for the rural and the farmers, they got a coalition together. They usually go up against Labor. Then you have all the minor parties, and so it's not just a dualistic red and blue. It ends up being that way through primaries. Now with Canada, I think from memory, you've got three major parties, haven't you? Or you did?
Um, yeah, well, there's 4 or 5 now. We're
Okay.
starting to get Italian style. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, can you imagine that shift in the United States with, like, if the Libertarians, that was Gary Johnson and Jill Stein as well. I'm just using the last election. So even if you go to 4 parties, it will make things interesting. But I don't think the Republicans or the Democrats want to lose that control because when you have a president, a running for president debate, it's only those 2 parties. Then there's another debate of 12 other people because you don't want the general public realizing there's more choices.
We actually have a Green Party that you never hear about, but there's a Green Party on the ticket, and once in a while you get an independent. So I mean, we do. It does sometimes get out to 4, but we have a 3-party system here.
Yeah. So it's but like Ross Perot sort of hamstrung because if the third party is either more.
Have we ever had an independent?
Well, how define independent?
No, have we ever had an independent party member become president?
No, of course not.
Absolutely not.
So yeah, okay. Well, the third party is there for hoots.
Well, as you're pointing out, Ross Perot did come in and completely crippled the Republicans during that the election cycle.
Yeah, because you have to come across to both sides of the aisle in a certain way to give an option. If you're leaning towards one or the other, you just basically allow. If you're more Democrat, you allow the Republican to win. If you're more Republican, you'll allow the Democrat to win because you're just taking away votes. Here in Australia, we have something called preferences, and so it gets to a point where the two lead. If all of us are running together, and it ends up being myself and John, Viking and Bruce can choose who their votes go with. I think that's how the preferences work. Because I don't vote, I don't care, because it doesn't work. But there's the thing of like at a certain point, your preferences of like, well, if I'm not winning in the seat that I'm going for, my preferences will go with say Labor. There we go. So I don't see that happening. Where like, can you imagine that a third party is like, Ross Perot sitting there going, him or him? Go ahead.
I've honestly begun to nurture a theory that the fate of the world depends on which side Charlie Sheen chooses.
Oh, you've done the data. You've crunched the numbers.
I've crunched the data. He's integral to this timeline.
Well, he hasn't died, and he keeps effing up. So yeah, something's going on with him.
He's sober a few years now, is he not?
Yeah, but how many diseases, and he still punches.
Oh, he's fine. He's fine.
Those sex allegations with children and punching porn stars, little things. However, we'll see how he goes. Yeah. So
we got that. We got that in the White House now, and it's working fine. Do you see the Charlie Sheen thesis is starting to take form in your imagination?
You forgot the word allegedly. I'm just putting it out there for for lawyer talk. Viking, you wanted to share.
No, this is just an FYI. Looking at the futures are already down over 600 points. Oil is down, bonds are down, so we're going into another down day. This is a hell of a roller coaster, man. The market wants to go to what's called fair trade and wants to go to if you look at the stock market at 2,500. It really is valued around 14,000, and it wants to correct itself. And this is the battle of a lifetime. These traders going in, the plunge protection team going in every day with their $150 million trying to stabilize the market. It's not working. This is showing it's not working here. So this is this week is pivotal. I was talking to Bruce earlier. I think this is going to show how we're going to be, the washer and spin cycle of our economy is going to play out here. This is not only, again, this transition is not only economic or political, but spiritual. It's about our physical being. It's about the health and wealth of this planet. It's all across the board. This transition that we're going into 4D here into 5D is all across the board. And you don't have to be spiritual to be in this ascension process. You can just be awake and doing your job and being your passion, and you're there. And this is the awakening process. I think that this is awakening. This is when I was talking about they're shooting themselves in the foot. By doing this, more and more people are realizing how much this is a facade, how much this has been geoengineered, and how much this has been a strategy of their demise. This is absolutely right now as we're speaking, we are at the tip of the spear.
And if once we get past, my starting point usually is money, because that seems to be one controlling factor on the planet, is by pointing out the Federal Reserve and everything else like that. If we can get through the money thing and see what happens, and we get through that, everything else will fall into place eventually. Because if everyone's out of survival mode of, I need to make money, I've got to hustle, and well, you don't have to. If you're in your passion and allow it to unfold, a lot of people are going to be in lockdown because of the coronavirus, and I've started a YouTube channel. I think I'm in the right business, because not many people are going to go outside, so they'll watch YouTubes. Hey, but I cling to my thought. If you can get away the pressure of the constant survival mode of money, you can think and do other things. If I can sort of sidestep into what Bruce has done, where you became more spiritual, didn't you, Bruce? Because you went down to the mountain and a lot of city pressures disappeared, and financially you weren't. You know where I'm going with. So if you can explain it a little bit better, but having that pressure gone, you can evolve more.
Yeah, that is true. Look, every human being is spiritual. What you don't have time is to realize it. And when you can relax a little bit, it becomes a lot more apparent. It just becomes a lot more apparent that, look, everybody has to decide why God created human beings. And I don't think it was to fit into this natural system in any way, like to govern animals or anything like this. Like, the human being is an anomaly within this natural system because of our level of awareness. It would seem to me that awareness is really what a human life is about, building it and going, as close back to the divine as you can. Now, the society they've created now makes that almost impossible. And it's getting harder and harder by the day now with the level of worry people have to put up with and everything. So, you do have more time to focus on spiritual things. You do have more time to listen to your intuition, to meditate, to read what you want to read. It's just own your time to the best of your ability, man. That's what I would say. And I think really now we're really starting to see shape this situation where, having your own land, your own food, and your own water is becoming more and more important. I heard Deborah Tavares say the exact same thing on a roundtable with Kerry Cassidy and Max Egan 2 days ago. She basically just described what I've done here on the mountain to a T. And that was her survival plan. She's pretty depressing to listen to. Have you listened to Deborah Tavares lately?
Not yet, no. But I have saved that for later, that YouTube one, because I know exactly what you're talking about. And so I thank you. I'll brace myself because it's going to be late. The sky is falling. But there's ways of getting out, because there's a thought form of if you do what Bruce has done, they'll eventually find you. But that's not going to happen. And you just follow your intuition, follow your passion. And eventually
I'm not working on electromagnetic railgun designs up here, folks. I mean, if it has to go that far, we're done, man. I mean, realize that, and I want to coin a new phrase here to deal with certain people who have knowledge, but it doesn't really come together well. Here it is. Occult PTSD. You saw too much of the dark side and you can't rebalance. When that candle of hope goes out in you and all you're doing is going around and saying we're all going to die, it might be time to hang up the microphone. What are you even going into public space for?
Yeah,
Seriously.
well, or deal with your trauma and
Yeah.
and find your balance.
Yeah.
Get a Zen garden. I've just
Yeah.
had a flashback of
If-
a TV show called The Police Files, which is what turned into The Naked Gun. But they went into the Japanese garden, and it's actual Japanese people in pots.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Z.
if I may, now, sorry, Bruce, you're gonna have to listen to this again. But I think I'm going to talk about the military here for a moment, in case there's anybody listening. So when I talk about this, it's not just about combat soldiers. It's for anyone that's been deployed. I think one of the things that veterans fail to realize is that, for lack of a better term, how do I say this? When you get deployed to the military, you're surrounded by you're basically surrounded by nature. So there's something very profound that happens to you when you get into nature. I'm not going to say balance out, but the bull crap of society tends to fade away to the background at the very least. And when you go through training, when you go through deployments, you're out there, especially you're doing overnights, you're sleeping under the stars, that type of thing. A lot of people don't realize that what's missing is not just your old life, your brotherhood, your friends, being a part of the team, so to speak, but you're missing nature. So for me, when I was doing my things in the military, generally I was out there making the best of what we had, which was very little in very bad situations. And what I mean by bad is that you get used to sleeping on rocks for pillows, and when you actually go back and sleep in a bed for the first time, or even just a cot, it feels a little bit weird. And to anyone listening, I'm not going to say don't get a 9-to-5 job, because listen, you got to eat, you have to survive, you have to do what you have to do. But get in touch with that piece of nature, because again, I feel like nobody realizes what's missing. That key component, just being out there in the desert. Don't get me wrong, it's desolate, it's hot, it freaking sucks, sand gets everywhere in places you didn't know you had, all the rest of it. But I fundamentally think that one of the biggest misconceptions anyone is under is that you don't need nature in your life after being deployed. And like I said, it doesn't matter where you are. You could be in the Arctic, you could be in the desert. You're surrounded by that nature, and as much as stuff sucks, and as much as it, is uncomfortable, there's something about being in nature that tends to relax, or at the very least, kind of soften some things. I'll stop talking now.
Yeah, there's a balance. I can bring up the Schumann resonance, where like grounding, where you just stand on some earth. However, dirt, grass, sand, snow. Well, maybe not snow, because if you're barefoot, but you get the point. You in any environment, you can actually start grounding through the magnetic field of the planet, as well as like the Schumann resonance is spiking all the time, and it's preparing us. And Viking, I did take your advice, and I'm starting to look at the cross stitching of it as well, where it's starting to turn into like plaid. We're all going Scottish. And it is fascinating to see when there's rainbow spikes, but there's also the connecting across as well as it keeps going up and down. And having those moments where just even breathing, you find your form of meditation and dial it back down and stop being jittery all the time. It does wonders. And yeah, if you've got you don't have to be in the lotus position for 6 hours in the Japanese garden. You could just go for a walk, listen to your favorite song or music. You could knit. There's options.
So I just had this topic on my last show, the grounding. And grounding, if you look at it as a grounding rod, okay, you're grounding. So all the static that's coming in, and we take it in as chaos. We take it in as pain and suffering. We take it in as judgment. It doesn't ground. It stays in our conscious awareness as our operating system. And I refer to this as AC. It's like AC and DC, the two separate platforms. How you view life, how you negotiate life. Are you stuck in this rhetoric, the wash, rinse, spin cycle of this dystopia? Or can you ground this into your passion? Because passion is really where you're grounding this energy. If you're in your passion, as you're pointing out here, Monty, if you're surfing or knitting or gardening, you're not thinking about anything. You're in an understanding of your acacia, of your skillcraft, skill set, and skill art, of your passion, of your attributes and your affinities. This is grounding. This is why meditation is so important, and doing yoga, finding a discipline, some sort of discipline that gets you into your passion. This is grounding. It's not, you can walk on the ground all you want, but unless you have that understanding that you are literally coming into your DC, your self-reflection, rather than being in this rhetoric of pain and chaos. This you have to choose. You have to make the commitment. It's an awakening process. You have to make the commitment, give yourself permission to leave this matrix, this dystopia, this holographic reality of organic AI that we've been programmed in. We have to find ourselves in our passion. This is grounding.
And I just had a thought as well. I'm not going to speak for John Z because I can't see his house from here. But people work with guns, and they can clean guns and do everything else like that. It could be, even working with cars, as long as you can be distracted and just be in the moment in that 0 point, and you can enjoy anything really.
It's chalking in the chalkboard, tinkering in the shop, anything that gets you out of the mind.
Yeah, being creative.
So because once you drop the see, we've been subjugated in the left side of the brain, which is the male operating system of survival. When you drop into your passion, your heart monad now becomes your operating system, where the brain then you have a binary function of both left and right, where your creative passions, your creative will, this is your vision, this is what manifests life, which then opens up a portal to your quantum dynamics, where your psychic abilities are there, your acacia, your all your lifetimes off this planet all come into perspective. I drop into theta, and the drop of just before a dime hits the ground, I can go into theta, and this is my higher quantum dynamics. It's me looking at me, and it creates a unified binary function to where I'm not subjugated.
Awesome. You just reminded me, it sounds like a Star Trek episode, but much better than the crap they're putting out now. Sorry, I'm from the culture war, and quite frankly, our culture is slowly burning down around us. Now, here's some interesting news. Bill Grant has joined us, so let's see what happens now.
Bill Blind, the science guy.
No, not wrong, Bill.
Yes, I deny the science guy. But anyway, I'll be brief without swearing, maybe not too much yelling. Bruce, you don't understand me at all, and you are not equal to or ahead of me. All right, listen, get the hell out of my way. Get out of my way, Bruce. And you probably should be looking for a nice little cave to meditate in up on your damn mountain. You are not ahead of anyone. You're disarming the people I'm trying to save. You have one chance. The people have one chance, and that's to give it everything that they can give, not to run away, because you are a runner. Goodbye.
I can respond to that.
Who's running?
I can respond to that. He's just, Bill. So Bruce is basically, if you're on the other side of a lake and you're yelling and screaming, what he's hearing is his own echo. He's actually reacting to his own reflection here.
I would
for those
agree
playing
with that. Yeah. Or simply put, as the tension elevates, you're going to see more and more people displaying their crazy.
And the human resonance is going to cause a compression, which the dark side of people are going to rear their ugly heads.
Yeah, and we've seen that with not with Bill, but I've seen that with other people as well. Where
wait, hold on. Oh, I'm sorry, Marty. Hold on. Hey, Bill. If
Bill
you're
has left the call.
Still, yeah. If he's
gone,
still listening, if he's still listening on radio, look, buddy. I'm open to hearing everyone's side of the story, but like stuff like that, there.
Why is it so personal? You're not ahead of me.
Yeah.
Nobody is better than anyone here.
I've done what I thought was best for myself and my son. I've created a space which has a higher survival factor, which everyone on alternative radio is saying people should do now. They're literally describing what I did. Deborah Tavares even says you got to have your own food, your own water. If there's another level to this that Bill knows about that we don't know about, we're all screwed anyways. I did the best I could. I can't be responsible for what I don't know. And I think doing the best you can, even if you don't make it, it counts on the other side. Life and death are joined together. Maximus wasn't that far off in that battle harangue in the beginning of Gladiator.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Viking.
It's food, water, and being your own central bank, which means have your own commodity. And silver is what I use. So food. Yeah. So to just be completely integral in your survival. And I just want to make another point about. I don't believe Bruce, me, you, anybody in this call is here to save anybody. We're giving our point of view. We're giving our point of view, coming from our passion, coming from our intellectual perspective, how we negotiate life. I'm not here to save anybody. You can't save anybody, because you try to save anybody, you're going to get pulled into their pit of despair quicker than you can pull them out. It's an illusion. It's like when Jesus walked, the blind kids can see. Just his essence of who he was created a slipstream into a higher awareness, and that's what this council is all about here.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have conceptions of what they can do, and then they're met with reality. I dealt with one guy who came to Costa Rica who thought he could set up an alternative energy system and everything. He couldn't even bathe himself. He was like a vegetable. I guarantee you, if we set up a GoFundMe and got $750,000 together in seed money for Bill Grant to create the prototype of an electromagnetic rail gun, we'd never see a gun. So, why are you coming on air saying it's just, we got to start calling out the crazy now. I think that's part of our responsibility, in the public space. Call out the crazy, and don't say things you can't do. Don't tell everybody you gotta know everything to survive. You're basically saying I know everything, and it's just not true. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between Why Not and Bill Grant. Actually, they're not. Yeah.
So if you look at Einstein, his brilliance, he was actually rejected from his community. So he had this ability of being able to go into his quantum dynamics. And when he went into his quantum dynamics, this off-world, time distortion, to create his vision, he had to create what's called applied science. He had to bring it back down and apply it to this world here. And one of my favorite phrases that he had, you can't simultaneously prepare for peace and prepare for war at the same time. This is, you can't sit there trying to create a rail gun
if you want peace, you prepare for war.
Yeah, John,
thank you.
Let him speak.
But my point here is that just the fact that he's in this mode, this modality, is going to manifest that timeline will be kept alive in his perspective. But what's really integral here is it's not our perspective. He wants everybody to have his perspective because he's right. There is no right or wrong. Right or wrong is an illusion. If you think you're right, you're not even in the same ballpark here. You're not even close to where we're going.
Well, if I can go back to where we're just here to sort of share ideas and opinions and just observe. That's sort of where, because I've gone through I'm going to save you all. Put your hands on the computer and feel my sincerity, everybody. I am your savior. That's not me anymore. I've done my bit, and I was the fixer, and doing Air Bunny quotes, and that's not me anymore. So the way I say it, I'm not here to wake people up. I'm here to make people laugh once they've gone through their own awakening and help with the trauma of like, oh dear God, look at all the crap that's gone through. I've got a connection to, I've got an interest with Sherlock Holmes as well as Batman, and so I realized what Viking was saying Batman? I like Batman. I don't know Batman. Everyone knows it's Michael Keaton anyway.
It'd be really cool if you know where Batman was.
Yeah. My point is being a detective, and that's what I'm here to observe and ask questions. Like, oh, what's that? What's that? Like hanging out with Andrew Bartzis occasionally. I try not to bombard him with questions, but I
wanted to ask.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you about that. So he's what I would call a capable oracle, if any truly exist. What does he say about this time we're going through in terms of like, process and outcome? People are going to die, but on the other end, we're going to come into something better. What's his general take?
There won't be I could be misquoting him, but there won't be change until everyone is protesting in the streets. Where they want change. I think that's the base level of it. With the coronavirus, because of I'm going to get his name wrong, but the Iranian general Salami, yeah, thank you. I just remember Salami, and that's how I roll. He wasn't supposed to be taken out. He was supposed to be alive into the 2030s. He was part of the global narrative. Because he's been taken out by a different force or something, everything's kind of like the chessboard's been flung into the air, and I think it's because of it's not unstable. It's part of the changing times where it's as the trends is like, say 50 years ago the energies were kind of solid and you couldn't change anything. Because there's this change, some group has come in. It's like, oh, we'll just fiddle with the switch and try and manipulate this situation. And with the coronavirus, he said if there's 50 million cases worldwide, which I think would be around about 1.1 or 1.3 million deaths from it because of infrastructure and other ailments. It's not actually the flu itself. It's the lack of ICU beds and everything else like that. And people get worn down from the first infection and they're more susceptible to the second infection, sort of how cancer works. That may force disclosure with the global narrative, because they'll have to bring out some medical technology which defies mainstream science today. So they may go into the secret, the split away civilization, and bring in a healing machine that defies all known science at this point in time, and do that. So it is kind of fascinating to see where he's going now. I'll try and if I get to a chance to chat to him again, I'll ask him that question. And so I've got like a press release from him. Now, someone who also is fascinating is Steve Zerilath has joined us as well.
Hey, what's going on, Monty? Ooh, you're recording this. Very nice.
Yeah, it goes up on my YouTube channel.
Yeah. Hey, listen, man, let me tell you something. I think you're probably the funniest guy I know on Instagram.
Oh, those are classic. I got to double down on that. Your comedy comes through perfectly. A few of them I forwarded and shared on Facebook. I don't know where you find those memes or whether you do them yourself, but those are just hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, you're practically batting 10 for 10, like on the inspirational funny meter.
Oh, thank you. I just find them on either Twitter or Facebook. There are actually other. I don't make many memes myself, but I probably will eventually. But I just share them. And and that's basically it. Because that's what my Instagram is. It's meme central.
Yeah. We need to get you down to Sydney, man, so you can go hit the comedy club. Come on, man. We got to get you on that mic.
Yeah, well, yeah, Melbourne has its own international festival, so yeah, I can do that. It's just, we'll have to see.
My point is, go to the city and be funny. That's my point.
Yeah. It's all part of my cunning plan. Because as the YouTube channel gets up and running, because I've seen it with other comics, they get huge as a YouTube channeler, YouTuber, and then they start doing live shows because their audience is there. I would like, and they sucked because they've never been on stage. I want to do, as the channel grows, I'll start doing sets at comedy venues to get my flying time back up on the stage. So it all hit at the same time.
Nice.
And also I have to write material and remember it. But, little things.
Right on.
So what did I stumble on tonight? What are we talking about?
Sort of, at the moment, the title of the show is going to be on YouTube, Disclosure ? Of Everything ? Because we're trying to sort of see the system's collapsing. And gentlemen, would you say that it's basically the theme of the system's collapsing and we're seeing where it's going?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. I would like to think it's just a snake shedding a skin, but it seems deeper than that.
Oh, he said snake. He's trying to say reptilians. It's code.
And I'd like to point out for those listening at home, John Z's just trying to say hello to Pony, who's in the chat room.
You see, like here's the thing that's really screwed up. I've got a pretty good gauge because I'm an Uber driver. I'm kind of in the nerve endings of like big money in America because I Uber drive in Greenwich, Connecticut. I talk about this a good deal on the YouTube Zerilath channel. Subscribe. But anyway, that people are they're a little bit scared, but at the same time they are saying like they know it's kind of overkill, but at the same time they kind of don't want to say stop doing that because like it's twisted and it's not right, and we need more people with good strong conscious awareness. I mean, like it's really time for people to have the courage to to speak up more than just like perhaps like they feel safe doing it on social media or YouTube. But where it really counts is when you're having a real conversation with somebody that you've seen in the course of your day outside at market, and because that's the only thing there's only two things people are talking about right now: elections and plagues, because it's a slow news cycle and it's very close to the event now.
Yeah. What do you mean by event?
Yeah, I was going to say which event? Because there's a lot, lot of events.
I'm pretty impressed with the latest Q confirmation of Trump's association with Q based on that tweet that was brought attention to from Q himself about the playing the fiddle and saying from Dan Scavino, which basically this is a holding pattern until the indictments are unsealed. I think it has something to do with the release of the Durham report, I think, is something that's pending, and they're trying to flood the news cycle with the plague and politics to try to bury the Durham report.
Also Giuliani going after Biden. Yeah, I think both those reports.
Giuliani.
Yeah, that's right. Giuliani's report's also important. But the Durham report is within the government, so it's got a little bit more weight with the mainstream media because they can't say that it had anything to do with bias. Because what Giuliani's doing is going to be more of a private prosecution through the federal system because of the nature of the charges.
Well, listen, guys. Okay. Giuliani was the mayor of New York when 9/11 happened. Okay. Most likely he knew what was going down, if not beforehand, when it was going down. One of the reasons why he's even still around is because they're just trying to like pacify him. He has no real how do I say this? He will not be a threat to anyone as far as presidents or mayors or governors or anything like that. Just because of him being involved in 9/11 and knowing what he knows, he cannot be put into a position of new public limelight. Don't get me wrong.
Thing.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing. You're partially correct, John, and you've actually brought some really great stuff to the table. Let me add the thing that brings it into focus so we can better understand the anomaly of Giuliani in this whole game. Chess. We're talking about fighting the globalist Illuminati, Kabbalist, the evil faction of the Freemasons. I really am. I want to give some lodges a chance because I know one or two people that I like a whole lot, and they're in lodges and they're people of good character and sue me. But I'm not going to say that all the lodges are innocent. Only the lesser lodges. So, as an executive position, mayor is an executive on a chessboard. That's the king. The king moves kind of like a pawn. He can only move one step at a time. But he's got the rooks and the queen as his security detail. So, therefore, he, in the course of managing government, he delegates all this stuff to security detail. Security detail knows more than him because of all of those details. They would be planning this around either keeping Giuliani ignorant of everything or manipulating a course of events through the security detail to reschedule things, relocate things that he would have been doing that week or that day as relevant to keep him in the dark.
Or they had a knife to his neck.
Maybe, but listen, here's the thing here's the risk that people take. If you have an office that guarantees you extreme levels of privacy to do work of your own accord, like the presidency does, where like the president can almost be completely alone under many circumstances in the White House. He can be completely alone with no one in the room, and he can just write things down, private thoughts, and he's allowed to be suspicious of all cameras and things like that. He just needs to be away from any handlers, and that's where you get the Book of Secrets conspiracy theory, and I think that there's some accuracy to that. So, long story short, long story short is these politicians are a little bit scary because look at Joe Biden. He's got all this brain damage. There's all this unconscious mental, like he is one of the most psychologically unstable people I've ever seen in public life. Like hands down, the scariest mind I've ever seen trying to hold power.
Yeah, Pelosi's right behind. Pelosi's right up there. Yeah, John. Share. We've got about 12 minutes. So
thank God she's not an executive figure.
Yeah. We've got 12 minutes to go. So, John, join.
So you guys are familiar with a deck of cards, right? So the King of Hearts, and what is the King of Hearts when it comes to political realm? Well, King of Hearts is pretty easy. I kind of see Trump as this in a way. The King of Hearts is pretty easy. You can win them. You can win the public over in a day, and then the next day you reveal yourself as what you are, and it all comes crashing down, meaning you're being deceived. That's one of the scary things about Trump. And so when I look around, there's no king of hearts in this political pool besides Trump. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that, yes, there's a lot of people that don't like him, but there's an overwhelming majority that do like Trump right now. And that you can't get anyone to replace him at this moment, at least that I'm aware of.
Now, your regular deck of cards with the King of Hearts in it has a direct relationship to the lower arcana of the tarot. So the King of Hearts can also be understood as the King of Cups, the King of Waters, the King of Emotions.
Yes.
It also represents, the cups represent compassion and understanding. I think he comes across as understanding the complacency of the American citizen. First of all, Trump's not even president of the United States. He's president of the United States Incorporated. Our flag is gold fringed. It comes out of the Washington D.C., which is not even part of the United States. So this is a whole different story here. But he's doing his best. I think he's doing his best, his damnedest, to rectify this whole situation. I still believe that there's so much happening behind the scenes. I believe that there's so much happening behind the scenes that we're not aware of that will come out as disclosure. It's all about timing. It's all about timing. You can't just rush.
So what about the
wait. You can't wait. You had about a lot of seconds here. You can't just rush.
It was a question. That's all. It was a question.
You can't just rush the public into full disclosure, or they would implode. We'd go into social unrest. It has to be a slow drip here, and I really believe the slow drip is occurring.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it is like an IV in a hospital. I think that they are dosing it a little bit so people don't go into occult PTSD.
So I got a question here, just as part of the theory for everyone's understanding, including my own. Now, the president takes 2 oaths and signs a document when they become president. They take the public oath, which is to the republic, the private oath to the corporation, and then they sign off papers for the corporation as the president of that corporation. And because it was understood in 2008 that Barack Obama was not under the republic, only the corporation. So, but the second time he was under both. That's the understanding as far as the magic behind the ceremony, because there's something psychologically towards with the belief system. It may not matter to the average American, but it matters to many a patriot or political manipulator, these particular details. So did Trump not swear? So was Trump's public oath to the republic null and void, invalid? Are we talking about the Article 3 court not being in function? Is that what we're talking about?
I have no idea. I just know that right now he is representing us as a corporation, which is tied into the Federal Reserve, which ties into the District of Columbia. Now, I think he's trying to bring back constitutional law. Constitutional law does not exist in our courts, so it does not exist in our higher echelon of government. Until this whole thing comes into disclosure and true retribution, we're not going to see the true president under constitutional law.
Right. Well, I think what we're seeing is that we're seeing the corporation in this obvious way, because the big difference for the first time since it was conceived, somebody was working in the process of using it properly. We can have the decision to get rid of it, and it's not standing in our way of having that conversation.
If you look at the DNC, their entire modus operandi is to dismantle our Constitution.
Yes, it is. I made a video for my channel that I just uploaded. I just finished it before I kind of called in. I didn't even know anybody was on the air. I just wanted somebody to talk to. And basically, I figured out the game plan. Joe Biden is winning the nomination because the working class Democrats just hate the neoliberals now, so they want to put him in as the nominee, and then they're all going to go vote for Trump. These aren't Republicans doing it. There aren't that many states that allow crossover registration. This is going to be Democrats that realized that all the actual ethical and honest working unions have been betrayed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's insightful. I agree, actually.
Yeah, because if Bernie can't win the unions, I mean, Bernie lost Michigan tonight. That doesn't bode well for him.
Nope, it doesn't bode well at all. That's kind of like a working class state, right? Yeah. They have dirt under their fingers in Michigan.
Yeah, and Washington is still within the margin. It's like 50-50, which is weird. You know, so you'd think he'd have a bigger lead in Washington.
Yeah. So to recap, dear listener, Bernie Sanders lost Michigan, and Joe Biden lost his mind.
Yeah.
Because apparently, if you don't vote for him, he'll slap you. Unless that's your type of thing where you don't want to vote for him. So he also endorsed Trump, didn't he, or something? I've stopped watching because it's like, you know, it's the train wreck. Sorry, it's
because
go ahead, Viking.
He actually thought he was in Minnesota with his sister.
Yeah, see, like it's funny once or twice, but if you get 18 in 16 days, it's like this man should seek medical help, and I don't think he should be the leader of the free world.
That's exactly why they're going to make him the leader.
Yeah. But you know what? Another thing that this is like is that, you see, Hillary Clinton, the way the news had to cover the election exposed her, but there was all this distraction. There was all this noise, all the hyperbole. They ran this pass interference on the signal, so it was harder for people to see that Hillary was that off her fucking rocker. Excuse my French.
Yeah.
But now we have Joe Biden, similar kind of situation, but there's all this clarity because of the way everything's been toned down since. It's pretty funny the way that it's working out. So the media isn't capable of scrambling the signal enough to make people see Joe Biden as better than Trump, and Joe Biden is everything that they said Trump is.
But it's just like, if you actually watch Trump, he sniffed young children for months, and now he's making gaps, like simple things like he doesn't know where he is. He introduces his wife's sister, and there's two women sitting to use the Bill Hicks joke. I want you to meet my wife and sister, and there was two women there. And he wants to slap someone, and he gets angry. His eye was leaking on.
He doesn't have the capability to focus. He doesn't have the capability to focus.
Well, yes, you are correct, because his eye was leaking blood on national television during a debate. He got the nickname Clotton Eye Joe that night.
It was was also leaking blood during one of Barack Obama's State of the Unions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he couldn't remember who Barack Obama was, and he referred to God as, and he also referred to God as, the thing.
Yeah, he also said, like, we the people, all this was created, the thing.
Yeah. Now, we've got 3 minutes to go. I'm not sure if anyone's going to hang out afterwards.
I could do a bit more. If somebody holds, just leave the server. We'll hang up when we're done.
Yeah. Well, I could probably produce from afar. It's just that we'll figure.
Or I could take it over.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to do that, it's just I've got to continue on producing content so I can get monetized. Oh, the joy! Steve, also with that, with this cough, do not tell your Uber people that you just came home from China. They may not like that.
And if you're receiving money, make sure you're wearing gloves, right?
Yeah, sure. No, I'm gonna be fine.
I would say full hazmat suit for the Uber job. Full hazmat.
I saw
exactly.
Lead-lined biological suit.
Yeah, no, that's what. So I'm going to actually start. I'm going to start that again. Since we've only got a couple of minutes to go, we'll do final comments and thoughts for Planet Collingwood. There'll be a Planet Collingwood after party where the Viking will be feasting in the halls of the gods. I'm not sure if there'll be venison or a very small cat. I'm not sure. However, closing thoughts and comments of disclosure. What's all good? Sorry, say
only
that
I
again.
have the answer. Only I have the answer. None of you are my equals. My closing thought.
Right. So the answer is 42. I'm still not
42.
sure what. Yeah, it's still trying to figure that out.
45-year anniversary of that book was just last week.
Yes, because I think it was a radio play first, then the book, and then the TV series, and then thing. So it's worth a read or listen or watch because it's Douglas Adams, and what a mind. What a comedic mind. Yeah. He also worked on Doctor Who as well when it was funny. Mr. Z, closing thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, no. Viking, I know you're coming back in a moment, but yeah, just this for the YouTube audience.
Well, all you guys out there think you know what's going on, get out of my way, because I can save the world.
I'm the savior, and so is my
Hold
wife.
on, I'm supposed to be that arrogant.
No, I'm that arrogant. Oh, this could go for hours. Thank you, everyone. That was Planet Collingwood, and boom, we've just gone straight into the after party of Planet Collingwood. You're on Revolution Radio, listener supported, 100%. If you enjoyed the last 2 hours, please go to the website and donate what you can. We will not accept children. I have to keep pointing this out to people. You're thinking of the Illuminati, and that's just wrong. Planet Collingwood shall return in 6 days and 22 hours. If you would like to hear this again and freeze frame it and just hear when Bruce gets a shellacking, you can on my YouTube channel, which is Monty Dean, or at the web address youtube.com/waferthinent. And I think you're all awesome and mine's a pint.